We're on. Hey, somebody give us a sound check out there. Type in the comments and you guys can see us. All right. Hey, we'll shout out first thing to my man, Matt McGivney, that says we're good. Thanks for the sound check. I appreciate that. That's awesome. This is fun. Never done this before, so this is cool. Appreciate you guys checking it out. Hopefully everybody that's on remembers who I am and what Bad Hombre Garage is. Special guest here today. So I want you guys to welcome my dad on. This is the guy we call the guru. Sometimes, you know, when they talk about the old guys, he's the guru. And that story came about a long time ago when, one of the many times somebody had an old hot rod that wasn't running right. And I remember that my dad went over there and he did a couple little things and it ran better than it ever did. And that guy turned to us kids and that function, go in there and type some questions. I kind of have a little bit of some current ones you can see here, and then a couple other things, and we'll just see where the conversation goes. But I'm shooting for about 30 minutes just for expectations. So if the internet's slow on that end, we're doing the best we can. Just know that after this is all over with, we'll post it back up and come watch. So, all right. Hey, shout out again, Michigan Muscle Car Garage. Thanks for joining me. I saw Dave Scott on there first. The Scott Rods, thanks for jumping on there. It's cool.
Hey, Dave, just a shout out. I like your videos.
All right. Well, hey, like I said, my dad's here with me. I wanted to get a conversation going, and I figured nothing better than, let's see, you can see right here, right? I want to talk about that car back there, this 32 Ford Coupe. So, Dad, why don't you tell us a little bit about your car, some of the story behind it, and specifically that engine?
Made a little contract deal with my 65 Nova full cage car, 9-inch. I built a pretty stout big block for it, 150 plus horses. Anyway, I'm sure he hasn't had it to the track yet or anything, but it was a handful. Of course, he still needed to get the body work done and put some paint on it, but it was rolling and it was running. I had done that job pretty much at his, what he wanted, and didn't charge him. Anyway, he asked me, just kind of as a passing comment, he said, "Dad, what's the next hot rod you'd like to build?" And I'd like to build a Holy Grail car. He said, "What's that?" I said, "A 32 Ford." I just let that go, forgot about it. 2 months later, we rolled into the yard here from Arizona, big U-Haul trailer in the back, and when we opened it, he had bought on Craigslist. Of course, it's fiberglass, but he just had some pieces. He had just the shell body. He had it came with fenders and so forth, which I didn't use. But anyway, I was kind of overtaken by that. I thought, all right, it's a challenge now. So my dream has always been a 32 with a pretty outrageous engine. Anyway, I started out somewhere things kind of derailed. I thought, well, wouldn't this be cool with an old first generation Hemi? But I thought that's impossible. Those things are so hard to find. And, if you find them, they're expensive. So, of course, I was finally on Craigslist, just an obscure, didn't even give a lot of information about it. But the address on it, it said it was out in Akron. And I thought, oh, I can't go Colorado clear out to Ohio to pick up an old Hemi. But on closer inspection of the ad, I found out there was an Akron Colorado. Well, I started researching a little closer and found out there's an Akron right over against the Kansas border, 8 hours from here. So I started getting excited, and I had bundled a little bit of cash, thinking it might come true. And I got up the next morning. I had all night, and I got up the next morning, told my wife Jane, I'm going to look into that Hemi. I'm going to give the guy a call. So I called. He said, yeah, I still have it. Well, I said, I'll be there as soon as I can get there. I came out, threw a couple of things in the truck, and took off. Well, 8 hours later, I rolled up on an old farm out there on the eastern plains, right almost to Kansas, Nebraska border. And as I pulled in there, it was some old buildings that looked like they were ready to fall down. And anyway, I rolled in there and I looked, I looked back in. I couldn't hardly believe I started walking over there, and here's this it looked like an old shop, garage, maybe a barn, and the roof was trying to cave in, it looked like. Of course, there's the old light bulb hanging by the looked like this jewel sparkling in the dark. And it had 2 Holly carburetors on it. It was laying on a tire, had an engine lift hooked to it. I couldn't believe it. I knew right then, this thing's meant for that 32. Well, I'll try to keep it short from there, but I broke out the hundreds, and the fella showed up, and we loaded it in my truck. And of course, I had a grin on my face all the way home. Anyway, I got it home, and I was all excited. I called a buddy that does have a Hemi also, and I told him what I had, and he said, "I'll be right over. I'm bringing my inspection camera." So I thought, oh boy, I hope we don't see any holes in pistons or anything. Anyway, with his camera, I already had the plugs out when he got here, so we stuck that old camera down in the holes, and that engine was so clean. The tops of those claimed that it had been in a boat, and the fella put about 8 hours runtime on it until he nailed it to take off, and he claims he stood. What made me a believer was there was a freeze plug gone out of each side on the block. So I put that together, and I know they like to cool them with lake water, so maybe this guy's telling me the truth. Anyway, after inspection, turned that engine 1 revolution just to make sure it stayed free. I don't know how many years it laid there. It was protected. Well, now to bring that story to where it's supposed to be, look behind me. It's in that car and it's running. And with that started up, I couldn't believe it. Talk about a camper, this one would. Anyway, it was a built motor, pretty. But it spoke to me, and it is an animal. It's fun to drive.
Yeah, and I can attest to that when you stand on the throttle on that thing, it's unreal, the feeling you get. I don't know. I don't have the opportunity to drive real amazingly high horsepower cars often, and that's something. I tell you what, you stand on it, it just sits you back, and you got to be hanging on. It's cool.
Anyway, yeah, it runs okay. I haven't, of course, haven't been to the track, but when I did put it together, I made sure I put a good stout roll bar in it and anchored the roll bar correctly, and it would probably still run, I believe, beyond those single roll bar standards as far as the track rules go. I'd like to find out. Getting kicked off the track once in my past.
That's right.
Kind of fun, maybe, to get kicked off the track again.
So, so the question, because we'll go back. We got to talk about that other one on here to talk about. He wants to know about your Chevy truck here.
Oh, okay.
But before we talk about that Chevy truck, we need to talk about the other Chevy truck you had way back, the red one, the 38 Chevy.
Okay, well, the 38 Chevy, I located it in just a little old town in Arizona, and it was just a cab that had been stripped out. There was nothing to it. I mean, it was. Anyway, I kind of made a deal with one of my old hot rod buddies that had it on the back burner, and so we pulled it in, and of course I built a complete tube frame for it. I used rectangular main rails, and it went together pretty.
That's right.
I made a deal with a fella that he was wanting another pickup that I had built pretty bad. I think it was a '59 Chevy pickup. It was just a nice driver, nice old truck, and he wanted it pretty bad. So he traded me this race car that was built pretty decent. That engine had been built in Phoenix, Arizona, and a regular speed shop had put that motor together. Normally, I build my own engines. In this case, I just made sure that it was correct and right. Well, it ended up in that 30 pickup. I drove that pickup. We jumped in it, my younger son and I, one time, and took off, went to Bonneville from Arizona. It was, the truck knocked down at its best 14 miles to the gallon. We had got back to Arizona, and a couple weeks later, I took it down to the track, and I didn't have a roll bar or anything in it. It was just supposed to be a nice.
It was out when that big block showed up.
Well, I did have it tracked when I was building it with a small block, and it ran 1330s all day long, and small block, I was happy with that. So I took it back home, took it all apart, and that's when I went ahead and painted everything and put everything back together for the last time. And built it in that big block. It was only 408 inches, big block. Started out as 396. Anyway, I got down there, and I had no idea what it run. The tech inspectors looked at it. They saw I didn't have a roll cage. They said, well, how fast is this thing going to be? And I said, well, the last time it was here, it ran 1335s, but I failed to mention that was with a small block that I'd had in it. So they said, okay, they passed tech. I rolled up there the very first pass and ran an 1192. It raised a couple of eyebrows. It just ran about like I thought it should run. And anyway, so I started disconnecting. I disconnected the inspector attention. Well, I wasn't very happy with it. It would still run under 12 seconds flat, running on 2 barrels and trying to back it off, move my shift points way down where I tried to make it lazy. And anyway, they said, that's enough. I hooked everything back up at the timing back where it should be. Cranked out 11.7S, and the track owner came over and stuck his head in the window, and he looked inside of it, kind of chuckled, and he says, I'm not believing this truck. You're going to hurt somebody or yourself. I said, all right. So, of course, by then there's a bunch of cars. I was happy. Anyway.
Day. I remember that day. That was fun. I think if I recall, you got kicked off out of the track, but I had driven my Nova down there, I had driven my Nova. You got kicked off the track, and I kept making passes. I stayed in the eliminations. And if I recall, that was one of those times I made it down to the final round. So after you'd been kicked off the track, you had to stick around anyway and wait and watch me keep making passes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's funny. Well, tell us about the black truck a little bit, Dad. It's a 53 Chevy. I kind of did, if you guys saw my last video I did about it, I gave a little bit of the background, but Nova front subframe and 350 Chevy in it.
Anyway, it's a good driver. It's a comfortable vehicle to drive. Back in 2013, we loaded up in both that orange 100 miles. Anyway, they ran great. The truck had road gears in it, and I could tell the motor was starting to get a little tired. Well, we made the whole trip. It was a great time. We got back here, and before I get too far, I'll take us back to when I heard the truck. Actually, I bought it from a fella that had just started down where he thought it should be, and back or anything, and right down the middle from door to door in order to stretch it to make it fit right. So I just I started tweaking on the A-pillars and trying to make the back fit. Anyway, I got it where I was pretty happy with it. I did throw a lot of lead in those A-pillars and all to kind of smooth things out, and it's worked. Put the glass in, glass fit. Another big thing was the doors, and after I got it to the point where I got it on the road, of course, somebody backed into one door. So
That's right. I remember that.
You couldn't just go to a body shop and say, yeah, fix that door. And so I let the insurance pay me to replace that door. And anyway, putting it back together here just recently, I freshened it up. I took the whole front clip off. Rebuilt the whole front end, A-arms, bushings, the works. At the same time, I had another small block on the stand that was fresh, so I put it together and split it in there, and I got her fired up, and hey, it runs good. I just got a couple little tweaks.
Yeah, so getting the feedback that it's skipping a little bit for us, that the old internet here doesn't perform as well as the hot rods. So I apologize for that. The good thing is we're recording this, and I'll release it out as a video. You guys can come back and watch. But anyway, let's see. You guys will have to give me some feedback on there. Not skipping so bad at the moment, but Dan, you put a comment on there. Yeah, keep getting your connections stable.
That you that was running so consistent one time, and you got down to the I think for the finals, and realized the floor mat had folded under his gas pedal, and
that's right.
He'd been clicking off ETs within the pedal down a little further, and he broke out.
That's what happened. I mean, I was pulling up to the bleach box, and I realized the floor mat was hung up under my foot, so I reached down and just slid it back. And I think the tree was coming down when I thought to myself, that maybe I shouldn't have done that. But anyway, I went and made a pass, and you was right. That car had been running 1380 every single pass, and sure enough, I broke out. Anyway, that does it. Well, I don't know. This is the first shot at it. So those of you who are sticking with our crappy internet connection, I appreciate it. And Matt, yep, shout out to Amanda. Yeah, there you go. Well, what do you guys want to hear about? If you got questions in there. There's I got 5:55 right now. So in the last few minutes we're here, there's one more thing I wanted to go through. We talked a little bit about hot rods, what we have currently. We talked some about racing. One of the things I said we would talk about is where we're going, where we're going in the future. So, you know, I kind of mentioned in one of my last videos that Bad Hombre Garage was really kind of born with the idea of trying to capture this experience and this fun of building and doing the hot rod adventures. And then the coronavirus hit, and I spent most of the last several months in my garage at home. So we're kind of loosening things up a little bit now. We're going to be able to travel hopefully more this summer. So I want to know what you guys want to see out of Bad Hombre Garage, because I got ideas. Like, for example, I think it was 2013, if I can believe it was that long ago. We loaded up in the black truck, and in that my orange Nova, and we cannonballed out to Bonneville again and watched Speed Week, or a couple days of Speed Week anyway. And just what a blast that was! Just driving out, throwing her out on the right by the salt flat there and camping there. That was a blast. So I want to do that again this summer. Most of the car shows have kind of been canceled around here, so I don't see any new. I'd love to take the orange car back to the track again, so hopefully that's on the horizon. And then, of course, like you guys who've watched this channel probably get used to watching a bunch of my Model A videos. When that thing hits the road, I want my camera hanging in the window and capturing that as well. Hopefully have my dad over there to join in with me. So
I can't wait. I'd love to do another road trip, and the old pieces and parts I threw together, it worked. At least you don't roast yourself. But anyway, it's ready. It's almost ready for another nice ride. Now you're probably wondering about the 32. I'm not ready to do anything long distance with it. It's a pretty radical car, and I think I'd get in trouble every time I had to go through a small town, because I don't think the people in this small village town here where we live down the road from me appreciate me rattling their windows off.
it's pretty wild.
Going back to the way back to the old days, some of my first racing experiences with an old front engine dragster, and that's going to be another story for another time. So I'd really like to expound on that. For back in the day, I made some there. I had some great times.
That's fun, man. I tell you what, the dragster was gone before I came along, or right around that time. I don't know, but I see some more pictures out Craigslist. I have to send it over to my dad so we can drool over it a little bit.
Well, one of the highlights of that old car, I'll just throw this out there. I took it to the '78 Winter Nationals, qualified, and it just seemed like we were out there on some little concrete pads. That was our pits, and it was just a few pads down. I went over and visited there for a little. 2 years later, I took Dan, my young one. He wasn't racing anymore, but I went over and gave him a hand. I said, "Hey, Big, that isn't the same motor you had in your car back then." He said, "No," he says, "but this one's pretty fast." Anyway, my son Dan got to meet the old guy too, and it was great.
That's fun, man. I tell you, this is fun. I'm having a lot of fun with this because I love reminiscing, and if all my brothers were here, it's just a good time. Lots of good memories.
You guys had any kind of questions? I don't propose to answer anything very technical, but you guys like to hear about some of the old times of drag racing or whatever. I was around then, and I was fortunate in that, I got to see the sights and sounds of it, although I didn't have a whole bunch of money to throw at it at the time myself.
Yeah. Man, well, while I'm giving you guys a chance to think about what questions you want us to answer here before we wrap it up, I want to give a couple more shout outs to my man, Michigan Muscle Car Garage. I see you out there. I like watching your videos. Amino's coming along. Let's see, Greg, I think it is, Homespun Tools. Hopefully you're going to get your t-shirt in the mail pretty soon. Thank you for figuring out how to translate Canadian money to American money so we could get that shipped to you. That was very cool. And then if you have bad reception, just wait. We're going to post this out there on the channel, and you guys will be able to go and watch it. It'll capture in real time. So we'll work on that before we stream. Let's see. Father-in-law up with the blower motor in it. Nice. Ah, man, I love those old 30s, 20s style hot rods. So
there's a comment from Steve. Had a 48 Chevy, and you could glance at it, and it was a slick hot rod. It got driven. It made the Power Tour. I forget what year, but we had a great time driving it. And
it was 96. Second running of the Power Tour. We were on there.
But it was a great time because you got yours customs cars, and there was some really good ones. Jack Chizenthal's Studebaker. Yeah. Of course he hauled it to Bonneville and made.
And I remember that car on there because as we would be cruising, we'd be going down the interstate at 75, and he would just go chug 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 right on by.
Sounded like he was lugging that big old motor.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. And as Dan said, Troy Trepanier was there, had one of the recent rides he just got done building on that hot rod, that Power Tour. And I think I have to go back and look. It might have been Magnante driving that old, I think it's a 69 Nova or one of those that they had been doing a bunch of testing on. And I like that because I had just gotten my Nova and I was in high school at the time. So I remember kind of checking that out at all the stops. So,
there was some wild hot rods on that tour, and I sure enjoyed it. I think the thing most of it has moved back east, and it's gotten so large that, well, you know, those things, they get to the point where it's hard to even participate. Even in our case, with I say as few cars as we had, there must have been in our pack there maybe 60, 80 cars, and you get the accordion effect out on the interstate. So you're speeding up to 75, and then you're back down to 40, and it's just an accident waiting to happen. So
yeah.
I can just imagine what it is today. I guess they have quite a turnout.
So 350, maybe a turbo 400 in your car, but does it need a solid pipe or is rubber okay? So what kind of tubing, solid or rubber?
Both.
There you go.
Anyway, that brake line to fit the contour of your whatever, bring it down your frame, up the side of your engine, however you like. Keep it neat, keep it tight, get it right up there to the right port on the carb base, and run that ported vacuum right down to the tranny with some short pieces of rubber on each end.
Yeah.
You know, use a couple of clamps, keep it floating around, and it'll work just great.
It'll look clean. You can bend it right there and make it look clean. You could run just rubber if you wanted, but it really looks good if you can tuck that steel line or aluminum if you had small enough.
And you know, use your imagination. I run some wires through as long as you put like some grommets on the ends and more.
Yeah.
So I hope we answered your question there, Scott.
It's fun. Very cool. Man, well, if the counter's right, I think we have 14 people watching. And I know there's not 14 Vigorias out there, so I appreciate everybody that's not my immediate family or my brothers watching the video tonight. That's a lot of fun. Oh, it's a funny story. When I started my YouTube channel, I started getting into data And so one day I click on there to see what my audience demographics are, and it says it's 100% female over the age of 60. So I wrote my mom an email and said, "Thanks, Mom, for supporting my channel." But I appreciate you guys sticking on and hanging out here tonight. It's a blast. Do me a favor if you want, put some comments on here, comments on other videos, email me, badhombregarage@gmail.com, comments on my Instagram, say, hey, here's what I want to see. I have questions about whatever. You want to talk more about the street rods we've built? Reminds me, we had some dune buggies.
The only last thing I have out there is if anyone looks in a dark, dingy old garage and spots one of those old front engine dragster frames laying around, drop me a note.
Yeah, let us know. Let us know. I want to take one and run it at the nostalgia drags. So, all right.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for a little time to watch this stuff. So, I just want to shout out to the familiar ones out there and also the new ones.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming. I appreciate it. Man, you guys are great. All right, we're signing off here. See ya.